I wanted to make a little video here just to show you some things that I've noticed in the past that could go wrong with using the leaf pattern that's been demonstrated. And I just did you can see I have an image here of a tree, and I was just kind of copying that, and I was making my leaf pattern. And, you know, not that anything can go like tragically wrong, but one thing I do notice is that people will make the leaf pattern and they'll start doing the little lines, right? And then they'll make it totally continuous so they won't stop. And it means the lines will all be connected. And when you do that, then you have like, you know, you start making your leaf pattern and all the lines are all one continuous line. And you can see also that I'm not varying my values here in this little example. And if I do this, I get something that doesn't look very natural. It looks like it's all one cohesive form. It looks a little bit more like hair, I guess, or someone's curly hair than it does like a tree. What you want to do really is have darker values, pick up your pencil, have lighter values, pick up your pencil. Keep picking up your pencil so you stop having, you don't have continuous line, and have some darker, some little points broken apart. I think in the video he shows us some edge pieces too. And go back in and maybe do some darker values in a couple areas to add some variety. Because if you don't have any variety in your values, then it will look really flat like this. So you want to be able to pick up your pencil occasionally and try to look really at what your tree looks like. You know, if you see that it's darker in some areas, then, you know, by all means, make your squiggly pattern darker in that area. If you see that it's lighter in an area, then, you know, make it lighter in that area. And if you see that there's a blank space, then maybe leave a little blank space, you know. So this will help your tree look more natural than this. So yeah, vary your values, pick up your pencil. And then also I want to talk a little bit about the trunk and shading the trunk. And here, the trunk has a light side, you can see over here, and a dark side. And that's because light hits the trunk from the side. Granted, if light was hitting the trunk from the back, this whole thing would be silhouetted and this whole thing would be dark. If light was hitting from the front completely, then you probably wouldn't necessarily have a really dark side and a light side. If it was angled, then you'd have a little bit of a dark side. So bear that in mind, but most of the time the light is hitting from the side and you have a darker side and a lighter side, and you want to really exaggerate that. And you can see also that I've worked some ground in here. And I used a little bit of the scribbly technique kind of for the ground. It's not totally the same. I'm not doing like larger kind of swoops. I'm doing more like broader stuff for the grass. And this is important because grass is kind of more like broader and not as much like big swirlies, right? So, so yeah, they can do that for the grass. And bear in mind that you don't have to draw all the grass. Like in my picture, there's actually the grass goes all the way to the back, but you don't need to draw anything besides these shaded areas. You can maybe draw a few pieces that are lighter. If you see them in your picture, it might be a little darker in some spots and you can draw those in. You know, just a couple indications of grass. And I would highly recommend, you see how I drew this line back here just to show where the ground plane was? I recommend that you don't put in a ground plane, because putting in a ground plane usually doesn't look very natural when you draw like a straight line like that. If you do want to use some sort of a ground plane just to show where the sky designates the ground, I would notice that it's a little darker, for example, on my right-hand side, and I can maybe just put like a little bit of an indication of something back there, maybe broken up, not really anything particular, solid, I'm just little kind of marks, maybe back there, but not all the way across. Maybe a little bit, you could do some on the other side, just to indicate that it continues back there. Do you see how that looks more natural, that it's not like just a line straight across, but it's broken up? So yeah, so if you wanted to use a ground plane, that's what you would do. And yeah, so back to shading the trunk. So you have a lighter side and a darker side, and I've just kind of like used, you know, lines that are kind of scribbly in here. But one thing I do notice that people sometimes do with trunks is, I've seen a lot of this before, where they want to hatch their trunk. And also, by the way, your trunk should spread out in the bottom, you know, tulips out. It usually doesn't just go straight into the ground, so bear that in mind. And also where it meets the ground, you should see what's happening. But what I see a lot of people doing with their trunk is they might try to cross hatch it. And I see people actually doing stuff like this, where they're like putting like a grid hatch on a trunk. and it's not curved, and you can see that it's just, and they might overlap it and do another grid hatch. That looks nothing like a trunk because I've applied like a flat grid onto a curved surface. So if you do want to do some hatching with your trunk, then I suggest that you like follow the curves of the trunk and definitely look at where the dark side is versus your light side. So you can do some overlapping hatching, and you can even change directions a little bit. But when I change directions, I just change directions a little bit. Like you can see, I'm still curving my lines when I change directions too. So it looks like it curves around the trunk. And then definitely deepen and darken where it's darkest. And lighten your lines as they go around. You can have them disappear a little bit here, or just fade, you know, to that side. So yeah, so you can hatch a little bit, and you can cross hatch, but you don't want your lines going in too much of a grid formation. You want them ideally following the contours if you can, so it'll look more natural. All right, so that's basically it. So try to follow the contours and work on your scribbly technique, and try to make some areas darker in your scribbly technique to add value contrast. And that's about it. Thank you so much.